This will be a longer video and different than the ones we usually post. In it, we will explore how to improve the formula of Civilization-like 4x turn-based strategy games. And even though the next section starts with a critique, I want to say that I love 4x strategy games. I have played as a kid since the earliest releases of Sid Meier's Civilization. I have played hours and hours of Endless Legend, Humankind, Europa Universalis, and Age of Wonders. It is no secret that these games have served as an inspiration for our upcoming board game Cradle. We spent hours analyzing what made these games so addictive and fun. We adopted a lot of the mechanics with the goal of achieving the magic of just one more turn, and we think we can actually improve upon the formula, push the genre into the next evolution. Hence, we will do this by first identifying things that can be improved. Um, Last note that this is a subjective review, so let's get it started. Non-thematic buildings and units. Buildings give a certain yield and comes down to doing math. Let's see this bank and this market in Civilization 6. This gives 3 gold and this gives 5 gold. Same for the bank and market in Civilization 7, different yields and some adjacency bonus. Humankind as well. The granary, irrigation, and reservoirs give similar yields. So there is a theme in the sense that there are the visuals, it looks like a bank and a market, and the buildings do give me gold, which is associated with the theme. But there is no thematic difference between these buildings. It makes me not see a bank or a market, but just yields that I get from them. Do I choose 5 gold and adjacency bonus, or 10 gold and no adjacency bonus? Do I choose a 1 gold per citizen, or do I choose 10% more gold per city? These all feel superficial and uninteresting. I want a stronger team. I want the bank to act like a bank and the market to act like a market. I still want them to give me gold as a basic thing that they do, and in addition to this, I want them to provide me with something more. I want them to provide me with a unique ability, a unique mechanic that I can perhaps exploit in my game. When I build a market or bank, I want to see those unique abilities. I want the game for me to change based on my choice. The solution to improve the formula: to boost immersion, make buildings thematic, make each building unlock certain powers and mechanics, make each building of a type give you the same amount of a yield. The market and bank would still give me gold, but the same amount of it, so I do not have an incentive based on the amount to choose one over the other. This way you choose the type of the building based on the yield you want, and then you choose a certain building, market, or a bank based on the new mechanics or ability that you can unlock. This will be a real choice that can change the way you play the game, and potentially choosing one should limit me in choosing the other one. And this is fine, as I will play another game and make another choice. Here is an example. The Latifundum, Peloponnese farms, and worker elephants all give the same benefit population growth each round. So looking only at that, it is the same which one you build, however they differ in the abilities they offer, that give you as a player more strategic options to choose from. Do you feel threatened by a militarily stronger player near your borders? Play the Peloponnese farms card. It would give the strongest player some food as tribute, but that player is unable to declare any military conflict against you while that card is active. So if you are the military strongest player, you get some extra population growth. If you are not, then another player gets that benefit, but that player is prevented in attacking you. Your cities are quite dispersed, and you want to concentrate your population to grow one large city. In that case, use the Latifundum card. This building provides you with the ability to move your people across cities. Do you want to refocus on building wonders or large projects? Then use the Worker Elephants card. Same as the other cards, it will provide you with flat population growth, but it gives you also the ability to use your agriculture labor as building labor for large-scale projects. The Latifundum, Peloponnese farms, and worker elephants all give the same benefit population growth each round. They give the same amount, so looking only at that, it is identical which one you built. However, they differ in their abilities that give you as a player more strategic options to choose from. You focus on the building's unique power, what you would need in your future strategy, and if you manage to tie the building's theme with the ability, you will produce a very immersive game. I was focusing on buildings here, but you can see how this logic also applies to other stuff. Equipment in Age of Wonders, units in Civilization, and Humankind are just non-thematic numbers and stats. Here is a table of their strength and movement. The units lack personality other than the rock, paper, scissors relationship. In Civilization 6, even units that are unique to a civilization lack character. The war card, unique to the Sumerian civilization, is almost identical to the heavy chariot, little more melee and less cost. Units in Age of Wonders are much better. You have several classes or types of units, and each type has different features. And there is a difference even between units of the same type. This is great, with the small note that the different training costs and maintenance costs take away from the choice you can make. Let me clarify what I mean. Let's say I have units that cost 3, 4, and 5 coin, and I have 4 coin in my possession to spend. I have no real choice here. I cannot buy the 5 as I do not have enough coins. So the units that cost 3 and 4 coins remain, but of course that the designers have balanced the game that the one unit that costs the most is the best. So I will always choose to buy the unit that costs 4 as the more expensive one, so I get better yield for my investment. From an initial choice of 3 units, we see that there is no real choice here. Now imagine if all the units cost the same amount and my choice should be how to utilize their special unique abilities better. Here's an example. You can train a pikeman, the Macedonian phalanx. You can train infantry, Roman legionary, or a general, Julius Caesar. They all cost the same, but they differ in their unique abilities. The phalanx is more of a defensive unit. It gets double strength than the others when defending, but it cannot attack. The Romans' infantry special ability is that they can also serve as workers during times of peace. Thematically, the Roman army was also in charge of building and maintaining the roads. The Julius Caesar card grows more powerful each time you use him in battle. You can see the steps progression on the right. However, after each round, there is a random chance the Caesar will turn against you and try to take power for himself, and the more you use that card, the more the chances increase. Your choices now will be based on your future strategy. Are you going to mostly defend and never be the aggressor? Choose the Macedonian phalanx. Do you instead anticipate peace, your army hardly engaged in warfare? Train the Roman legion. How do you feel about risks? Do you feel luck is on your side if you play the card Julius Caesar? So to conclude, theme is king. The buildings, units, technologies, research need to differ in something else than them just giving different yields. 5 gold or 5 more gold per city or 10% more gold per city or 2 more gold per worker. These are very non-thematic. Let those buildings, units, and technologies give the identical yield and then differentiate between them with their special unique abilities. Too much linear progression. Missing choices at the beginning. This applies to technologies trees, to buildings you may build, civics and bonuses you can adopt. I understand that the goal is for the more powerful ones you want to unlock later. My argument is that there should not be more powerful ones. Balance the game, let the technologies unlock mechanics and new ways to play the game. There is a two-step solution. Uh, First step, in order not to ruin immersion, divide the game into multiple ages and make sure all the players are always in the same age. This way, you would never have tanks fighting with swordmen. As an example, Civilization 7 does this. Make the transition more transparent. For example, the age ends, get victory points that will be all summed at the end game, and then each player selects just a couple of things to take with them in the next age. One age can be, for example, from the Iron Age 800 BC until the Condemned Antiquity 500 AD. It is still spanning 1.5 millennia, but this is good enough in my opinion. Second step, make most of the units and buildings available from the start of the age, seldom lock improvements with other improvements, open up the game choices at the very first turn. Why do I need to research pottery before researching writing or irrigation? I know that historically this happened, but when we are playing games, we are reliving history. It is an alternative history, a what if history. This will push players to explore with new styles and will birth scenarios that will be quite different than the linear ones. Age of Wonders 5 tomes are a great example of this nonlinear approach. You choose a tome and then each tome comes with a couple of linear progressions you can research. In case there are too many choices, you can offer a semi-random subset of choices based on research investments. This is nothing new as lots of games do it, like Stellaris and Old World. In Cradle, for example, if you research towards culture, the choices of the buildings, improvements, and units you are offered are randomly picked from all the available culture choices. So the choices are different each game or each time you research, but you can still focus towards a specialization. For example, if you would research agriculture and nurture, you would get something like the Latifundum, worker elephants, and Peloponnese farms discussed previously. The choices you are offered are semi-random, they would all provide a yield related to what you want to research, plus some unique special ability. These choices at the start will push players to start their games with a different approach. Example, I start with big focus on religion at the very beginning of my society, or I want to start with ship cities inspired by the sea-fearing Phoenicians, or I just want to start with a huge city at the beginning of the game. And of course, these should all be balanced by pairing them with other limitations or negative victory points at game end. Take the card Dido of Carthage as an example. It does give you the option start with a huge level 3 city, however, as a trade-off, you lose the ability to colonize any other city for the remainder of the game. Choices that are not real choices. Choices that do not matter. In a game, ideally, I want my choices to matter and feel grand. I want my choices to have long term effects. I want to feel like a ruler that makes the critical choices that change how I play my future turns. What about micromanagement, like assigning workers to tiles in Civilization or managing the production pipeline in our History Untold? I guess it is interesting to tinker with these in the early game, and it is fun at first, like trying to solve a puzzle. However, I definitely do not want to perform this micromanagement in the mid and late game across all my cities. The solution, the only real choices are bets. The real choices are if you do not have all the info, hence there is a risk involved, or a short-term versus long-term reward with risk and uncertainty. Let me start with a couple of examples to show that often there is just an illusion of choice. 1. No limits on buildings and improvements. In a civilization game, I can build all the buildings with almost no restriction. And in all the games I played, I end up building every single building. So there is no fear of missing out, there is no choice of this versus that building is better for me. And it is similar to the technology tree. I probably will end up researching every technology there. And if I can build everything and research everything, then everything is vanilla, blunt. Every game feels like I am doing the same choices. The choice is not what I want to build, only when and how many. Solution: limit the number of improvements. For example, in a city, limited choices of buildings, let's say one slot per city level. Same for the technologies, limit technologies you can research in an age. This limit should be much smaller than the choices of buildings and tech you have, around 1 versus 100. This means that even if I can choose to construct any building, I cannot choose all of them. Choosing one takes up a slot and potentially closes the door on another. But this is not bad, as it encourages you to experiment and promotes playing another game. Another example is about the buildings and technologies that are essential. Campus for Science and Research Lab in Civ and Humankind, Mage Towers in Age of Wonders 4. To have a chance of winning the game, I have to build these buildings. Hence, is not really a choice, if to build it, just a choice when and how many. So, an illusion of choice. Not all games suffer from this. To be fair, Civilization 6 had meaningful choices and differences between government policies. Solution: all the ways you can win should already be at your disposal. All the core mechanics of the game should not be behind a wall of research and building costs. It is fine if you unlock new mechanics and new ways to get you to win the game, but the essential should always be available. As I mentioned, buildings and units should provide unique abilities, but these would just expand the strategies available to you. All the core mechanics of the game should be already available to you at game start. 3. No long-term effects of stories, encounters, and diplomacy actions. Age of Wonders offers stories and encounters that you have to decide on. When I first saw this mechanic, I was very hopeful at the future implication of choices, but then I quickly saw that the choice was always this versus that gain benefit. You get maybe a new hero and some negative or positive alignment. However, there is no further narrative or strategic implications beyond those direct benefits. Even the diplomacy choices do not feel grand. Most of the peace terms can be broken or last only 10 turns. My choices are short term. The results of my actions feels like a passable thing. Solution: do not be afraid of long-term effects. Yes, this might be that a player gets locked in a choice, but this encourages to play another game, and next time you will really think about the implications of your choices. The story elements should have long-term or permanent effects until game end. Make the choice of getting something small now and no drawbacks or risks, versus getting something huge but involving a huge risk or drawbacks until the game ends. The most interesting choices, and I would also dare to say here, the real choices, are actually always bets. How much you are willing to risk versus your potential reward. How could we make, for example, the encounters in Age of Wonders more interesting? Let's say, as part of the encounter in a cave, you find an artifact. You have a chance to destroy the artifact or activate it to make your faction much stronger. The latter choice triggers an effect where every faction can see the artifact on the world map, and if they manage to destroy it, the game ends for you immediately. Now, this would be a much more interesting choice as it involves a risk, an uncertain future, and danger. Same for the diplomacy, make the contracts permanent. Real choices that you have to live with till game end. You concluded a peace deal with a neighboring civilization, then this is permanent. You can no longer attack directly this civilization. However, it is up to you to find different ways to outmaneuver your opponent. Your decision is not temporary, only lasting 10 turns. Your choice matters and has game-changing effects. Next time, you will think hard about agreeing to a peace deal. Summarizing the possible improvements we can make with Civilization-like 4 turn-based strategy games. Remove simple lump sum yields that buildings, improvements, and technologies bring. Replace them with new mechanics that are strongly thematic and that provide players with new ways to play and win the game. Make sure players have many available choices since the beginning of the game, but also make sure players cannot make all of the choices. Ensure that the choices are significant with long term effects and game consequences. Whether you're designing your own game or just an enthusiastic player, I hope you found this video interesting. Keep in mind, this was a subjective review, just one perspective among many in the community. The intention behind was to inspire fresh ideas and help push the genre toward its next evolution. Take care, and until next time.